Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to be looking at how to design a build in Minecraft, and we are going to do that by actually designing a build in Minecraft. We are going to start by picking out a location and then going through all of the steps, including things like how to pick block palettes and how to create unique shapes with blocks. If you are looking for tips on how to improve your building skills, then this is the video for you. So let's get started with the 8 steps for designing a build in Minecraft. Starting with step number 1, picking a style. The first step in designing any build is to decide the style that you want your build to be. There are so many different styles to pick from. You could choose medieval, fantasy, gothic, industrial, modern, ultra-modern, steampunk, cyberpunk, daft punk. Wait, but you don't have to limit yourself to just one style. You can mix and match them. Maybe you want to do a fantasy desert build or a medieval industrial build. There are many ways to mix and match the styles to come up with something unique. For our project today, I think we should go with the fantasy design because that's my favorite. Does that sound good? I think that does. Now that we've picked out the style of our build, we can move on to step number 2, location. Once you have an idea of what you are going to build, the next step is to find somewhere to build it. Picking out a location can really help with getting inspiration for your project. Incorporating the landscape into your build can help make it feel more natural, and it can give you ideas for the features you can add. So let's look for a good location for our project. Let's see. No. Oh, no. Yes, this is something that we can work with. We've got this island right here in the middle of a lake that's surrounded by these mountains. I'm definitely getting some ideas for what we can do here. We've picked out the style for our project. We've got the location. Now it's time for step number 3. The first draft. When I start designing a build, I like to work out a rough shape for the project using some neutral blocks. This is my first draft. It allows me to work out the proportions before I start adding in all of the details. For our project, I think it will help if we get some blocks placed. So let's start there. You are going to see through this time lapse the process that I go through in working out the proportions for our project. I like using neutral blocks like white or gray concrete for this stage because it helps me to focus on the shape rather than the details of the build. I used to use just stone blocks, but I found that it helps to have different colors for different parts of the build to be able to distinguish between them. The benefit of having a first draft is that if it doesn't look good or if you don't like it, it's no trouble to just delete the whole thing and start all over again, which is what I did here because I didn't like the direction it was going and I came up with a new design that I am much happier with. Now that we have the first draft of this tower completed, we can talk about the thought process that goes into designing a build such as this. The first thing that you're going to want to think about are layers, because layers are going to make a build interesting to look at. So down here at the base, we've got these outside towers, which are all different heights. Then as we work our way up, we've got this second layer of outside towers, and they end up just below the initial level of the middle tower. And then the middle tower has even another layer, which goes all the way up to here. And once we start adding in the details, we can separate out these layers even more by adding in different types of features. With the draft completed, I am starting to get some ideas about the types of details we'll be able to add in. Now that we've got our first draft of the build, we can move on to step number 4, block palettes. Picking a block palette can be one of the most tricky parts of a build. There is a lot of trial and error when deciding on what works. Some builders really get into things like color theory, which helps identify colors that work well together. I'm no expert on color theory, but if you would like to learn more about it, I've included a link in the description to a color wheel and an article that describes how to use it. In addition to picking out blocks for the color you want to go with, there are some other considerations to keep in mind. If you want to have a lot of detail to your build, you will want to think about the options available for the color you pick. For example, if you want to use purple blocks, there will be some limitations because there are no purple walls, fences, or trapdoors, which means you will be limited in the shapes you can create. One tool that can help with picking out blocks is a website created by 1280pix called HueBlocks. A link to it is in the description. This allows you to pick out colors and will match colors with the blocks in Minecraft. It is particularly useful if you are looking to create a gradient. One thing to keep in mind is that this tool can suggest blocks like netherite blocks that can be really difficult to collect in survival mode. If you like to use mods, Axiom is a mod that adds a built-in gradient tool and color picker into the game. Having something in-game does make things a little bit easier when you're working on a project. With all of that in mind, let's pick out the block palette for our project today. I think we will keep things pretty straightforward. So we will have stone bricks for our primary building block, but we will use tuff and deep slate for creating shadows. We will want to have some color as well, so let's get netherite bricks and warp planks for that. I think we have a pretty good block palette here. But before we can move on to adding details to our project, let's take a look at step number 5, how to create the details. Over the years, I've picked up a few different ways to create details in a build. Let's look at 3 different concepts: pillars, arches, and corners. As a basic principle, pillars are just a column of blocks, but you can really add a lot of variation to pillars in Minecraft. First, we can switch out the middle block for a wall, or we can add 2 walls and a fence, or we can add 2 walls, 2 fences, and an in rod. We could even take this a step further and put trapdoors here. But you don't have to use just pillars by themselves. You can also add them to a wall and it will add depth to your project. Or you can take half a pillar, and it's now a pointy tip for either the top or the bottom of a project, which makes pillars a pretty good detail for any project. Arches are also very versatile. You can have shallow arches that can easily be expanded from 3 to 5 to 7 blocks wide, or you can make them deeper while also making them wider. As with pillars, you don't need to just use arches in the traditional mode as support between 2 points. You can also use them to create shapes. If you put 2 stairs together like this, you get a small little point of detail. If you add a slab here, you get a pretty unique shape as well. And finally, corners are a great opportunity to add in details. You could just have a straight line of blocks like this, or you could go through and add in walls to create a subtle variation. But you don't have to stop there. You can push the wall back and add glass paints here, and this not only adds in more depth, but it also allows the opportunity for more detail here, such as colors or frog lights. You can also use corners to add a line of color. If you have a corner like this, you can switch out this block for a highlight color and add in walls here. Then instead of having a super bold color, you can have a more subtle line of color running up the edge of the corner. We've got our block palette picked out. We've got the tools for adding in details. Now it's time to move on to step number 6, building by sections. When approaching a big building project, it can be difficult to know where to start adding in the details. One thing I found that helps me is to break up a build into sections when I first start out. This allows me to focus in on one part of the build and not get distracted by the rest of it. Taking a look at our project over here, let's start with this section. I think the first thing that we are going to want to do is turn all of this white concrete into stone bricks. But we can't really just leave this as stone bricks. We need to add some texturing. One way we can do that is with some stone. So if we go through here and just replace parts of the stone brick with chunks of stone, that is going to be a much better look. That's looking a little bit better, but there's still some more that we could do with it, starting with adding in some deep slate bricks down here by the water line, because where these bricks are going to be interacting with the water, they would be a darker color than the rest. We can also add in some tuff along the base of the tower because, again, where the bricks are going to be down at the base, they'll be a little bit darker than the rest of the bricks that you see here. We could probably put some deep slate back here as well because this is a darker corner where the light's not going to be shining in as much. So what we've done is really just add in some highlights with the tuff and the deep slate, which just brings a little bit of a darker tone to the base of this tower. But even with the additions down at the base, this is lacking a bit of character, so I think we should add some things along this wall right here. Yeah, so I think something like that's pretty nice. To create this pattern, it's just using stairs in the corners of a 3x3 square, and then for the background, it's just some shades of cyan color. And I think all of that works really well together. The next area where we are going to need to do something is in this spot right here. And I think what we are going to do is replace these blocks with the nether bricks and then put some stone brick walls in front. Yes, there we go. That's looking much better. Now we need to finish off the top of this tower. And I think what we should try to do is put some tough bricks and some stone bricks along like this. Then I think we should add a layer of blocks on top of these walls. Underneath, we'll put some stone slabs. And I wonder if some warped wood would look good here. Oh, yes, I think that does look good. I think that this is a good start, and it gives us a good idea of the style we are going to use in the rest of the build. We are now ready for step number 7, putting it all together. This is the step where we put together all of the designs idea that we have come up with in this section and apply it to the rest of the build. So let's get started with that. The first thing that we need to do is go back through and add in all of the details that we did in the first tower to the rest of the towers in the outer layer. For this second layer of towers, because of their size, we are a little limited in the types of details that we can add in. But I think I was able to add in quite a bit of detail using a combination of full blocks, walls, and nether bricks. I then added in pointed roofs using cyan blocks, which will help separate it out from the tower that is going to go in behind them. The central tower was a little bit of a challenge because we had all of this space to work with. Eventually, I settled on a combination of bands that go around the outside, along with these ovals in the middle to add in some cyan colors. But I wasn't fully happy with how this tower was looking until I started creating these swooping roofs that end up in points, and that just made the whole tower feel a lot better. But it wasn't until I got to this final section of the tower that everything started to click. So you can see I used the walls and full blocks and nether bricks in the corners. We've got the swooping design, which is the opposite of the roof below it. We've got the pillars and the arches along the top. We've got the dome roof, which is using the cyan blocks, and everything just fit nicely with the rest of the build. Our build is now looking much more complete, and there are a couple of different details that I switched up from when we were last looking at the individual work that we were doing here. So you'll notice if we get up closer, we've got some variation because I switched out some of the nether bricks for cherry logs, and I think that that adds some nice texturing. You'll also see that we've switched out having just stone bricks and stone, and we now have cobblestone in here. We've got andesite in here, and I think that that adds for some variation, which you don't really notice as much when you're further away, but definitely as you get up close, you can see that it's just a little bit more textured. When you're building, that's something you want to think about is how is this build going to look up close and how is it going to look far away? Because some things that you add will make it look good up close, but when you get further away, you're not going to notice it or it's going to look bad and vice versa. And as you can see here, I've added grass on top of these towers and that is going to be addressed in our next step, terraforming. Completing a build is about 90% of any project. The remaining 10% is terraforming, and it is an important part of making a build feel truly complete. There are a couple of parts to terraforming. The first is getting the terrain set. The second is adding in things like roads and trees and plants. Building trees is not something I'm particularly comfortable doing. So a couple of months ago, I went through and designed a bunch of different trees. Now I have all these different models to use anytime I need to add custom trees to a project. So let's start adding in some terraforming to our project. To start the terraforming, I added in some rocks along the base of the tower using cobbled deep slate. I then added in a bridge because otherwise there wouldn't be a way to get to this tower, and lined that bridge with some custom trees. The last thing I did was added some trees to the grass platforms, along with some vines using a combination of oak leaves and azalea leaves. And we now have a completed build. The terraforming really helps with bringing it all together. We've got the trees added in not only for this bridge, but also for the towers, and I think adding in the vines, it just makes the whole thing look much more complete. And I think that's the biggest lesson that I have learned from building in Minecraft. You need to do the full process if you want the build to look as best as it's going to look. Because if you just have a build by itself, it's always going to look just a little bit off. It's only once you start attaching it to the terrain that it really starts to look like a build that's in a world. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope that these 8 steps will help you as you work on your building. And if there's one thing that I would recommend, it's just to practice, because I would never have been able to build something like this 8 years ago. It was only after I practiced over and over and over and tried new things, tried different things, tried the same thing but in new ways, that I learned how to put all of this together. But I think if you were to practice, you will be able to create something not only just like this, but you would be able to do something even better because you will have your own ideas and ways that you could change what we've looked at today. But I think that is where we are going to leave it for today. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And until next time, see you later.